Everyone, welcome to eTalks. Today, I am going to be your host and moderator, Esranur. We have a very special guest with us, like all of our guests, but this one, I've actually had the honor to meet with Dr. Raisa Rahim. I want to do a little bit of more introduction of how we met and who she is so far in my life. We met in person during a program in Davis that involved high school students getting more engaged with STEM fields. She gave a very lovely presentation about who she was, her experiences, and how that contributes into her STEM fields today. I also got the opportunity to actually interview Dr. Rahim, but we decided that a second interview is best. So thank you, Raisa, for giving us your time and your energy. I'm going to throw it back at you to introduce yourself a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you, Ezra, for that lovely introduction. And thank you, everyone, for inviting me to that lovely talk. I'm Dr. Raisa Rahim. I recently got my PhD in PhD in Neuroscience from UC Davis. I've had the pleasure of speaking with everyone earlier in the year, and yes, I'm excited to share a bit about my journey again today.
Yeah, me too. Alrighty. Whenever you're ready, you can let us know. Go ahead.
Awesome. Right. So I'm talking a little bit about my journey thus far in my academic and professional career. But yeah, please feel free to jump in with any questions if ever you have any. So yeah, let's get into it. So, science for the longest time was done by the few to mainly benefit the few, and that resulted in a lot of pseudoscience that kept discriminatory social systems in place. But through radical grassroots movements, we've gotten to a point where diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, are being considered much more when we think about how to build better communities and societies through training diverse scientists to benefit a wider group of people. But of course, there's still a lot of work to be done.
Right. You're almost like there's this whole system of science placed, right? But I really like that sentence that you repeatedly say is like STEM fields started out by the few to benefit the few. And like that shift of focus now changing into no, we need more diversity, not because it's like the cool new trend that's coming up. It's because it really does benefit the science, right? You said that because we've had this history of the few benefiting the few, and as a result, pseudoscience happening from that, it ends up really creating less and less opportunity for those diverse science knowledge to actually come up, right? Like we're just finding out more about like certain disabilities or certain neural develop. Like for me, I work a lot with like individuals that have autism or ADHD, and
mm,
because of the diversity now, or like the starting of diversity now, we're seeing we're able to detect or help females that have autism or ADHD, or kids that are coming from different cultures that have autism and ADHD, because now we have a wider lens of
mm,
research to fall back on. So I'm
uh,
just reiterating whatever you said in a
it's
longer way.
it's such an important point to drive home.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of interesting work on genius and creativity and
Mm,
how having diverse perspectives, whether that's coming from racial diversity or neurodivergence or what have you, how that creates such a rich body of knowledge to draw from
yeah.
to create really innovative solutions.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's like we're just
Talk,
limiting ourselves more when we limit other people, right? Like it's in a weird way like science karma. Like if you're gonna take out a whole group of people, you're missing a whole chunk of data now, and we'll never know what that will look like, right? Unless we do it.
this history and how we're viewing the world now um, is starting to anyways.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's so important for, like you said, broadening our scope and um, coming coming up with new innovative solutions so we don't keep like hitting the same roadblocks.
In regards to your own history, which I think what we're going to talk about next, what could you
Mm-hmm.
explain us more about your experience and what that looked like for you as a person, that, by the way,
Yeah,
congratulations again, that got their PhD, that recently got their PhD. What did that look like?
yeah. Uh, well, yeah, we can sprinkle in. I I can talk about that more as we go on. That's an important piece. Uh, so yeah, to start with, I grew up in the Bay. Uh, I went to a public school for K through 12. I was really interested in both science and art and sports and what have you. Uh, but I was especially drawn to being in nature, which is really an amazing umbrella of art and science. Uh, so I love to read about different people facing different situations from a young, and this learned empathy set me up in so many other ways. Um, when when I was in sophomore year of my high school, I had some medical events that drastically changed my life and gave me firsthand appreciation for the need to support DEI principles. Uh, again, without getting into it too much, um, I had some medical event that turned me like from an athlete into someone who's wheelchair bound, and as you can imagine, um, that was really difficult, especially to be in high school at an age where peers don't especially know how to deal with differences. Um, but so it was isolating to some extent, but I also was very lucky to have like a really good core group of friends who to this day I'm very close with and thankful for. Uh, but yeah, that provides some context, I guess, for uh, my lens for work today.
Yeah. I mean, as if high school wasn't already isolating, I I can empathize to some degree that like shift of your whole entire like life is different. And I think what I really found value in what you just said is the fact that like you got not only your firsthand experience, but you got a firsthand understanding of how important not only like diversity, equity, or inclusion is, but like having those supports in place. And that also includes like educating people about disabilities and inclusion and what that really looks like. Like I can relate that a lot into my job. Like even for example, this week, there was this kid in one of the classrooms and they hit their head on another kid and they kind of like had like a little ache and they're in like a second grade class and this student got up and said my head's hurting, I don't want to be a special needs kid. Like obviously hearing something negative or having some sort of like preconceived notion of what a special needs kid is, and that like that whole experience with that kid, I was like they're so young, but they already have these preconceived concepts and misconceptions of what disability looks like. And the fact is, disability isn't just for one group of people. Like when we get older, sorry to say, we're gonna get disabled at some point. We're not gonna run as fast as we could. We're not gonna jump as fast as we could. We're not going to operate like think cognitively as fast as we could, right? Like that's just what comes with aging. So not only are we doing a service of, speaking up for the people or like having people who do have disabilities, giving them that voice and that opportunity to say like, this is what disability looks like to me. And this is what inclusion can look like to me. But it also gives a whole population, just like what we're talking about. It gives that whole population data about what is disability and how can we make sure that like our whole community can be involved in inclusion so that like you never know, like you said, there was something that happened during sophomore year that drastically changed your life. That can happen to anyone. You don't have to be born disabled to understand what disability is, in my opinion.
Oh, I then that definitely resonates with me. Um, one thing I will say is that just talking with kids now were in my orbit, so maybe that in itself is like not representative of the wider population, but kids I see in the street, well, even random kids I see in like stores when I'm out in the community. There's so much more like receptive and inclusive and
Mhm.
not othering compared to when when I was coming up. So
Yeah.
like hopefully um hopefully instances like the one you're mentioning, like hopefully we're trending away from that.
Yeah. 100%. I totally agree with you too. Like nowadays, I feel like kids are a little bit more open and more curious, I think. And I think that's like the best
Mm-hmm.
combo, right? Like I don't know why as adults we kind of stopped doing that. I mean, I get it from a psychological perspective, right? Like it makes sense, but like
Sure.
we're forming all our brains or whatever, but like you don't need your brain to be open and kind. You need your heart and your soul, right? Like that that is something that you can always improve on, and it doesn't have to be closed off, in my opinion. But yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. So yeah, getting getting back to what you were saying about like disability having many facets and um no, it doesn't have to be the limitation that society has impressed upon it for so long. So I my medical life had changed in a huge way when that was only one part of me, right? So I knew education was important, so I went next to a community college to mainly study psychology. Um, and at that time, I started dabbling in research on redwood trees all over California. Um,
We have a lot of those.
we do, they, they hold a very special place in my heart.
Mm.
So yeah, next I transferred to UC Davis to complete my undergrad degree in biological psychology, which is basically the neuroscience of how we think. So I did research part-time in 2 labs studying how monkeys move and how music can help us remember information.
Yeah, 100%. I I actually have to like sing things in a tune to remember them. Like, for example, if I have
Mm-hmm.
like three big tasks that day, I'll be like, we're gonna go to the dentist, then we're gonna go to the mall, then we're gonna like, like I'm just like I need to like make it
Brilliant.
fun for my brain to remember. But so were you able to like try out music with monkeys, or was that like two different like studies that you were doing?
Yeah, those were two different labs.
Gotcha.
Yeah, wouldn't that be interesting? Seeing monkeys ballroom dancing.
I would love to see a monkey ballroom dancing. I think I would pay tickets for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, in a nice
Um,
little tuxedo.
what were I'm just curious, like were there any results or like end findings about those two experiments or those two studies that you were doing?
Yeah, so wow, you're having me transport back like almost a decade, but let's try. Um, in in the monkey project, um, we were uh, we were looking at what kind of hand movement the monkeys were doing in order to pick up a piece of banana, and that informed us how a particular area in the brain was functioning, because we were we were basically testing whether that area was necessary um for the particular function, and the results were very promising um for that this area was needed for picking something up with a particular um posture of the hand. And in terms of the music study,
Mm-hmm.
um we found that the richer the musical memory, um the better we're able to remember all the ebbs and flows, um the more details we remember from like a story that we, like a cartoon that we see. Uh, so the idea of that is, like you said, uh, use it as a tool for remembering all the important things in our lives.
Thank you so
And
much
sorry,
for no, 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 no.
that
Thank
was
you so much for transporting yourself back a few years. I was just curious to see what those end findings would be. But I don't want
that's
I want to
totally
yeah. I'll throw it back to you to I want to we want to continue where we left off.
totally. Um, um, so um, after I graduated with my undergrad degree, I then took 2 gap years, during which time I continued in those two labs, and then picked up a third where we studied how people regulate their emotions.
Ooh.
Yeah,
That is a skill that a lot of the population is missing. I will tell you that now. Well, I wouldn't say missing. I would say we could find better regulation, I think.
Mm,
And better coping strategies for sure.
for sure. Yeah. So, given given all that experience, I did a lot of soul searching, um, to try and figure out, um, like, what am I really passionate about? Um, I knew that I always wanted to go to grad school, but it's a big investment, so, like, I really wanted to make make sure I'm setting myself to be most successful,
Right.
like fulfilled in my journey.
Yeah. I feel like that's also really tough to do sometimes, to be like sure and be like, okay, we got everything, I'm gonna do it. So I'm glad that you were able to jump on that boat quick. You were like, all right, I know I want to do grad school. These are all the things that I need to set myself up with. And you did it, dude. That's like amazing.
Thanks.
You're
Uh,
welcome.
but yeah, so I knew I loved to learn about a whole range of topics through reading books on psychology and physiology, evolution, and ecology. And as we know, um, reading a lot makes us better writers.
Hmm.
Um, so my love of reading grew into a love of writing that, when paired with my love of biology, brought me to my favorite marriage of art and science, science communication that tries to help non-scientists understand scientific concepts.
Yeah, instead of us reading like a huge paper that's like, I don't know, 9 times New Roman font and has like big scary words and graphs I don't even understand. And data is a huge part of my field, but even then I'm just like, okay, I can't. I don't know what this words mean, and I don't know what they're trying to prove, but this looks legit. And yeah, I truly value the work that you're doing. Like, making sure that people understand what the research is saying, instead of, because our imaginations go wild, and so we could read a title of a research article and come up with our own conclusion of what that research means. But to be able to have that science communication, and I love that you said that it was a marriage between science and art. Like, this is a working relationship, and this is something that's going to be fruitful for the entire community, because now scientists can actually speak on what the research is, without having misconceptions, more and more misconceptions, and like you said, the pseudoscience pop up even more. So I'm just,
Yeah,
again, fangirling about the work that you do, because it's so important. So I really appreciate it.
right. The, the majority of scientists' research is publicly funded. Um, so I think it only makes sense that the public should understand what their money is going towards.
Yep. Literally, yes. Makes sense to me. And it's like, the reason why people are just right now, you've opened my eyes to like how research in like STEM fields are actually done, and it's kind of like a terms and conditions thing for a lot of the public. It's like, do you agree with this terms and conditions? Yes, because I'm not going to read a 100-page like small research document, right? But this just
Right.
it's just it's not only information, but it's like it gives people the ability to actually advocate for their needs if they know exactly what the research is talking about. And that is
Oh,
so huge, especially in like health fields, like medical fields, right? Like when there's a lot of people that are trying to self-advocate in medical offices, but they can't because they don't understand what the research is telling them. I don't know.
mm,
Again, fangirling back here. Amazing work.
well, yeah, too. Um, exactly on that note, I I especially got a lot of fulfillment in using science communication as as a tool to further DI causes. Um, so this this skill in writing was very helpful in producing successful application. So I got the National Science Foundation's Graduate Research Fellowship, which is a grant that funds scientists while they're getting their masters or PhDs. So I stuck around in Davis a few more years. Um, I joined the Neuroscience Graduate Group and in Attention Lab.
Wait,
So
the attention lab?
one of one of the attention labs on campus.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So first off, what is attention? Do you have any ideas?
I will say what I've said to you before.
Yeah.
Attention is definitely something that I have a dysfunction of. I lack it sometimes. However, in a psychological perspective, I actually don't know how to describe attention.
Well, it's great that you see that. Thanks for sharing. Because a lot of people have tried to understand attention um, from multiple angles over the century. But really, there's actually still a lot of debate over what it really is.
All these people were
Uh,
like, nope, we don't even know. We don't know either.
no. So, one important function of it is to focus a person on their goals while ignoring distracting information, while another is the ability to remain focused on a task for a length of time.
Is there like a baseline length of what typical attention can look like? Is it like half an hour, 60 minutes?
Mm,
How That's just another random question coming from my head.
No, it's it's a good one. Um, I don't know of any studies like that, but it's also been a while since I've been really invested in the research. Um, but but I think I think there's there's a lot of work, um, pretty recently or in the past few decades on the state of flow.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
um, there, I think there's a wide range of like durations of time,
Right.
depending on your like flow state and the nature of the task you're doing and the just how you need to prioritize your time, if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. And that kind of, I just kind of answered my own question in my head with your first statement of like science was made to by the few to benefit the few. And I realized that my question doesn't makes a lot of sense because it just depends on environmental factors. Where are you doing this attention-based thing? Do you have anything that's motivating you externally or internally to stay on task? Are you taking any like there's so many factors that could
And
built into what your attention looks like. And
and
like you said, there's
also
that state of flow that can be different for everybody. And what that reminds me of is like for a lot of neurodivergent folk, especially if they have autism or ADHD or the combined type, they will go into like hyper focus mode, right? And
yeah,
it'll be like 5 hours of like, oh, I just built
um,
like the entire city of Rome in Minecraft, like that kind of level of like hyper fixation.
yeah,
Um,
like
that I
what
also see.
what is normal?
Yeah.
Like yeah,
There is no normal. Right.
right, yeah, abs- so I thought um we could try to illustrate this point through a game so you're familiar with the test by this so can you please count the number of X's that you see flashed in the following slides?
I will do my best. I hope our audience can also follow along. Go ahead. I counted 6. At one point, I literally was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I started counting all the rest of the letters. I was like, no, 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 go back, go back.
Good job. That, that's what I got too. So it brings back, um, we, we have an infinite amount um, coming at really any given time. Um, so how do we hone in on just that stuff that like goal relevant,
Mhm.
as we say? It's yeah, quite an important thing was alright, so I'm gonna test you to remember how many labs I was in during my gap years.
3. One was for, well, hold on. Let me backtrack. There was 2. Wait. Okay, you did 3 labs total. One was for understanding what how music plays into our memory. Number 2 or the first or the other one was about monkeys and their hand movements of and what that looks like in the brain when they're trying to grab for something. And the third one, oh my God.
You've got it.
The third one was attention.
I believe in you.
The third one was something to do with attention, right?
So close.
Was these these labs during, so were the 2 labs that you mentioned that I first mentioned happened during your undergrad, and then your third lab on emotional regulation was the gap year lab? Or am I totally off? Oh, okay.
Yes, so I added emotion regulation in my gap year, but I continued the first.
Okay. So it's like a trick question. It's like technically 3.
Kind but you got it, so good job.
Awesome.
Cool, so those are just some examples of how attention is critical to our functioning. But we've talked about neurodivergence, so we have an idea how attention is important. So how we wanna then know what happens when it works in an atypical way.
And
So attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, is a common disorder in children where these patients tend to have trouble answering questions like the one you just answered, mainly struggling with controlling impulses, staying focused, or both. So I researched how to best treat these symptoms. But long story short, there is no silver bullet. It seems like the best treatment is the one that best treats the individual child's
100%.
specific needs.
100%.
So yeah, do you remember what percent
Yeah,
kids?
I think I do. We are,
Yeah,
it's 8.1% and we're number one in the world to have the highest amount of people
That's
with
right.
children with
Mm.
ADHD. Which I mean, like in one perspective, I'm celebrating it, like, yay, go neurodiversity. But on the other hand, it's like, oh my God, do we even have the supports and resources in place to support this population?
So,
Right? Like I
mm,
and I think it goes back to that the few benefiting the few, right? Um, I think there's been a lot more rise nowadays of like, you know, understanding what ADHD and autism can look like, and not only those specific neurodevelopmental disorders, but disorders in general, I think, or disability in general. Um, but yeah, like it's kind of wild that we're number one in that, but we're also like very terrible at providing science communication to the people that have these disorders, and the both the challenges and the strengths that come with that, right? Like um now a lot of kids with ADHD aren't suitable in our educational spaces because their needs are just so different, and they're like, okay, I already know how to do the math because I just understood it like in the 4 seconds that I looked up, but my brain is
yeah,
like now telling me like I want to do this and this and this and this. And what, that support and that resource is so needed. So again, really valuing the work that you do, really do.
mm, thank you. It's, I, I, my, my work argue that we, we need to, we need to open up, um, the kind, the kinds of supports we're providing to the patient, these children, um, because like what what we have now isn't cutting it. Um,
Not even close. In
it's
fact, I think it's more, it's debilitating. It's debilitating for the people that want to support and be around those individuals that might have these disorders, and it's debilitating for the person themselves. Like I tell a lot of my teachers that I work with, like, we're both exhausted right now, but imagine how that kid's feeling in that body and mind, right? Like
yeah,
if we're exhausted because we're trying to support him, imagine how that child feels at the end of the day when all they've heard all day was like, do this, you're doing it wrong. But at the same time, their body and their brain is telling like, you need to do this, you need to do this. It's like, can I just chill for a second? Like
mm,
that frustration and that exhaustion is so real to the people who aren't diagnosed, because again, that science
mm,
communication is lacking. And not only science communication, but that science data is lacking. A lot of ADHD and autism assessments were built on white boys, not even white girls, right? Like it was
yeah,
predominantly white male centric, right? And now we're
right,
seeing that ADHD and autism looks so different at female presenting people, or like people who were raised as females, like, or people that come from different cultures, or people that just have a different way of living at home. Like this all looks different. um and again, like, it's that science communication. It's not only, here's the research, public, take it. It's here's the research and here's what that means, and that's the thing that's lacking, I think. And um again, you and all the other people that are working so hard to build up that science communication and build up that capacity for both scientists and the public, it's a lot of work. And if we can do anything to help you out in that realm, like count me in. I'm totally locked in for that. So
Awesome. Yeah. Keep that in mind for sure.
yeah,
We need all the help we can get.
100%.
Awesome. So I graduated from grad school, but the question then is, what next? So my PhD training gave me the scientific know-how to make sense of the world, but it takes a very long time for research to actually be put to use to actually help others. So I wanted to find how I can have a more immediate social impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So which is how I found science policy. So it takes the science and figures out how can it link up with how existing government systems are in place and melds them together to try to make something with real world implication. So this field can address issues as diverse as uh, preventing the spread of disease, protecting against climate change, and ensuring food safety. So I wanted to look into how my research can be put into practice. So I already had some idea how to treat childhood ADHD. So I wrote a paper trying to figure out how to pair the science with up and coming government actions to better support children with ADHD while they're at school. So you might, what does that really mean?
Yeah.
So I first looked at my research to try to find which treatments might be most effective. I looked to see what the US government is considering for child education. And once I found a proposal that was a good fit, I tried to come up with a viable plan that paired researchers and educators to use as evidence-based solution in schools. So yeah, my last question for you is like pie in the sky. If you could tackle any science policy topic, what would you choose and how would you approach
There's a lot.
It is a lot.
I
Sorry to
think,
put you on.
right, I think the biggest thing that's been popping up for me, and it's been popping up in the news, is like female healthcare and
Mm,
specifically like OB and like gynecology care. Um,
mm, mm,
anything from our like period products we use to even like testing for specific cancers, for example, is, I'm gonna be straight up, it's inhumane. Um,
mm,
like we just found out, like not even this year, maybe last year, that like a lot of our period products, like pads, tampons, have toxic like chemicals
yeah,
in them.
right.
And it doesn't matter if you get the unscented or the scented ones, right? Like and that's stuff that we're putting like in or around, like on our bodies, right? And that, like, we
Mm,
already know our skin is permeable to some, semi-permeable to some chemicals and stuff like that. Like things can very naturally just go inside our skin, affect our organs and all of that. And in terms of like gynecology care, um like you can't be knocked out for any procedure that's testing. So you have to be awake for an internal sample being taken, and I have a friend that I know that's been through that, and it's brutal. It just is, and it's inhumane. And I think if I could do any of that, it'd be that specific topic. How would I tackle it? I would scream a lot, but I think the most effective way to do it is, I would try to find researchers or scientists who do want to involve a lot more women or female presenting individuals in the field, so that or people that have the XX chromosome, right? People that do have those external and internal organs, if they can participate in the research, and also if they can also add to the research, right? There's so many gynecological related illnesses and disorders that come up, like polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, anything to do with your thymus gland, your hormones, like all of that, again, is very white male centric. A lot of the history of gynecology is brutal, right? It comes from white slave owning doctors doing experiments to their to African African American women, and without their consent or knowledge of what's happening. And again, like, I'm ranting and I'm venting on, but I think that the fact that it's 2024 and we still are barely scratching the surface on that topic of like 150 plus years of brutal gynecological science, right? Um,
mm,
it really does infuriate me a lot. So,
as in, as it should. Yeah. Um, it's a, it's a really important thing to bring up. I, I think having, having like a real evidence-based, um, like partnership between policymakers and scientists is a really, really good idea to have.
mm,
Um, and yeah, um, here's to hoping that such an initiative can be put into place and like it's long overdue.
100%.
So, So yeah, again, we'll return to the question, what now? So I'm excited to share that I'll soon be starting a consulting job to help the California government work better through science. So, hopefully I can be a small part as we try to move our society toward like really evidence-based um, evidence-based systems that are meant to work for us all.
Yeah, 100%. I really like that image of an explosion. It's like California government. I'm like, yeah, you get him, girl.
We'll see. So, continuing that thought, I hope I've encouraged you and our listeners to tackle. We've got so many big problems, and it can be overwhelming. But really, there's a lot of value in like honing it down to the manageable problem in front and trying to chip away at it in whatever way we know how, whether that's through science or art or advocacy, whatever way that's important to you and brings you fulfillment through like so you can make creative, innovative, multifaceted solution in the hope that all the small pieces that we're all working on can come together to add up to something great for us all.
Yeah, I hope so. I I have a lot of hope for this. I mean, I'm part, you and I are part of this next generation that the older people are kind of talking about, but with relation with kid, like the children that we're working with, like they're already so creative and they think about things that we don't think about a lot. And it's on some level it's a little bit detrimental to them because I feel like they're aging a lot faster than what we're used to. But on the other like on the flip side of things, it's like it gives us a like you get to also enjoy that connection with like creativity, right? Like that untapped creativity part of their brain that's not influenced by you know um our own egos or our own preconceived notions of what something is. It's like they could just come up and ask you like, why is the sky blue? Why is the moon doing this? Why is your why do you walk like that, and why do you talk like that, and why is she doing this? And they just continuously ask. And I think for some reason, as we get older, we stop asking questions. I don't know why that is. I mean, I have some idea, but
Yeah.
I hope what our audience can gain from this, or what our listeners can gain from this, is that you just keep asking, right? Like just keep being creative and having that curiosity drive, because I think that's the thing that actually gets you to unlock a lot of the, exactly like how you wrote here, like to unlock that creative solution. You need to be able to tap into that um very, very creative drive that's been given to us since childbirth.
Well said. Mm, mm.
Yeah, if our audience has any other questions or would like to connect with Dr. Rahim, you can find her on LinkedIn, Raisa Rahim, and she has a PhD on her name. So you make sure you find the right one on LinkedIn. Raisa, thank you so much for giving your time, your energy, your knowledge to us and to our audience. I really do fangirl about the work that you do. I kind of mention you a lot in in some of the spaces that I'm in. I'm like, hey, like we need to talk about science policy. It's kind of it, I really do really value the work that you and a lot of other people that are in the neuroscience field or any STEM field that are fighting for DEI. And again, not because it's the next trendy thing that's coming up, it's because for centuries, and I'll say years, but literally for centuries, we have and I'm just saying we, but like people have advocated for diversity and inclusion, especially in STEM, because we realize that without including everyone, we're not going to get the every data that we need to make that evidence-based decision and conclusion about a specific topic, right? Like you can't have data and research on, for example, gynecology if you don't include any women in your studies for centuries, right? Like you shouldn't, but that's unfortunate, like that this has been the case. And I'm very, very hopeful because there's people like you that are working so hard at making sure that this doesn't happen again, that history does not repeat itself, and that people have that power to understand and advocate for their needs. Like it's just such powerful work that you're doing. I really do appreciate it.
And your words are always so kind. Thank you. And yeah, I'm hoping with like this coalition of people who were interested in this work, we can really, like you said, build something truly great.
Yeah. Well, before we leave, eTalks has a lovely little end of the episode ritual we kind of do. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. You give me your answers, and that'll be the end of our episode. So your first question is, and I feel like we kind of already know the answer, but I'll ask anyway.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on art?
My opinion on art, it's it's such a profound expression of the human experience, like um just just it's truly amazing. You can be so stressed out. For me, it's physically difficult to do art in a lot of ways, but when whenever whenever I do, um, like whenever I do make the effort and have people around me who support my ability to paint or sing. It just turns around my whole day and turns out, again, diversifying your modes of creativity. It's like multiplicative. Um, I I enjoy like doing art in one way, and lo and behold, that benefits my science and my ability to communicate in such, again, profound ways. So,
Mhm.
yeah, very pro art.
Well, me too. More things we have in common. I love it. Okay. What is a, and you don't have to give me one of each, but if you do, you can. What is a book, movie, or book or a movie that you recommend to our audience?
um, well, given our earlier conversation on gynecology, that reminded me of, I'm forgetting the author, but The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Um, that it was that book got my blood pressure up so high, but I think it's necessary reading.
Yeah, 100%. And Henrietta, I forgot her last name,
Relax.
Lax. She, her stem cells were taken without her knowledge, right? And then that stem cell research ended up being very profitable. I think it was like cancer research.
Mm-hmm.
And then she and her family never saw the profits of that. What did she was she also the one, was she also diagnosed with the same sort of cancer that they were researching? I forget.
I I think that that cell line can be used in lots of to research lots of different diseases.
Right.
Um,
The Gila cells. Yeah.
yeah, and if I'm correct, um, her family might have seen some um some portion, like they might fund some financial award, but of course it was nowhere near enough.
Yeah. Uh, I really love that you recommended that book. 100%. Was there a movie that you'd like to recommend to our audience? It can be a chick flick. It can be a rom-com.
Sure. Uh, and we can cut the awkward pauses out here. Uh, I, of course, when you ask a question, I forget that I've ever seen any movie. Uh, so I think the the one that's coming up is Jojo Rabbit.
Jojo Rapids?
Mm-hmm.
What is the
Yeah,
movie about? I haven't watched it.
it's it's interesting. It's kind of satirical. It's about a kid who was in the German, not the SS, but the child with like the Hitler Youth group. But it's a satirical movie on like his evolution from like being really invested in the cause, because that's what everyone else is doing, into like how stupid it all is.
Last but most important question, in my opinion. What's your favorite color?
I think you know that too. It's I went to Turkey last summer, and I've always loved the color turquoise and just being surrounded by it was lovely.
Yeah, the turquoise color is like literally so iconic. I love it too.
Yeah,
All right, Dr. Rahim, thank you so much again for giving us your time, your energy, your knowledge, sharing a few laughs with me, and we're getting real serious on other parts. I really, really appreciate it. I hope we do a lot more collaborations together, not just you and me, but with Erguan as well. We really, really love that. We really are pro art too. I don't know, I don't know if you can tell, but we also really, really appreciate, value, and practice art so that we can also boost that creativity and that, like you said, that profound human experience together.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.